All right. I'll just start the recording. So this is going to record you, except it's going to track it. Wherever you're going.
Try not to get
This is going to record you, except wherever you're going.
Right. Cool.
All right, guys. Welcome, everyone. It is my great privilege to introduce Jeremy King. He is the head of engineering at Pinterest, a very avid supporter of San Jose State University. He is extremely busy, and the only thing that he does outside of his normal job is to come and talk to students at San Jose State. As a matter of fact, this time he did mention that he's not taking any outside engagements except for the San Jose State. He's always made himself very busy, and he's most recently joined the board of Wayfair and the CIO to come and talk to students.
Yeah.
Senior advisory board, right? And before that, he was the CIO of Walmart. He was responsible for Walmart.com, Walmart Labs, and later the entire Walmart infrastructure as a whole. He has a long history of things that he has done. Before that, he was the CIO of Walmart, executive vice president at eBay, taking care of their infrastructure, responsible for scaling them up from a very small company to all the way. And just an amazing guy, very helpful, very kind, and he's always made himself available for us. Okay, please welcome Jeremy King.
I do love being here. I probably guys here. I am a San Jose State grad. Graduated in 1992. So for those of you who took a while, I went to school at night mostly my last 3 years, and had some good internships during the day, and that really helped propel me. And I'll talk a little bit about career advice and stuff like that at the end. Those of you who saw the video that Nitin sent out, I took a few slides from what I call the startup sandwich. After I spent some time at Walmart, I joined Pinterest, and I realized as I was trying to digitally transform the Walmart, the biggest company in the world, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I forgot to do, and so I took a whole bunch of lessons from there, and that's what the other presentation's about. So I took a few slides from that, but mostly this is new material based off what Nitin asked me to do. So I'd be remiss not to talk about Pinterest a little bit. If those of you who don't know what Pinterest is, hopefully you do. Pinterest is the inspiration platform. We want to inspire everyone to create a life that they love. One of the main reasons I joined, I had lots of opportunities to go places around the world, and just was enamored by Pinterest and what we do. We're pretty big. We have 450 million people visiting the platform every month. 50% of the users are outside the US. It's a huge global platform. 300 billion pins. People don't even understand how big that is. 6 billion boards that people have created. It's a massive platform. We're the biggest customer, or biggest sort of retail customer of AWS, and we push them so hard. We're quote unquote their #1 customer, if you will. Push them really hard. We have the biggest S3 buckets in the world, and it's a pretty amazing platform across the board from a tech standpoint. My career, people ask me about this all the time. I jumped all over the place. I started out, luckily, I was working at Synoptics when I was still at San Jose State, and it was a startup. It was only about 2,000, not even that, 1,500 people when I joined. It got acquired by it merged with Wellfleet, merged, and then became Nortel, which is a big behemoth company. I only lasted about 4 months after that happened. And then I unfortunately left too late for the sort of .com boom. And I'm sure you read all about that in your student papers and all the world, what happened. We spent, at Photopia, we spent $124 million in 20 months. We filed to go public, but instead went bankrupt. So it was quite a ride through there. All that time, I was getting called from old friends at eBay, and nobody wanted to work at eBay. And then all of a sudden, everybody wanted to work at eBay because it was the only site on the internet that was actually making money. And I got to work on this great project to really rebuild eBay from scratch. It was totally dead, and it was dying every week. And timing was just perfect. From there, I followed my old boss, Maynard Webb, who's sort of a Silicon Valley luminary. He became the CEO of LiveOps, and we were going to try and disrupt the sort of future of work industry. 2 years, almost 3 years there, total disaster, and ended up leaving there after we split it into 2 pieces. And then I got this crazy call one day, and people said, this recruiter said, "Hey, how would you like to work for a Fortune 5 retailer?" And I literally had to look up who was in the Fortune 100 to see who it was. I'm like, "Are you talking about Walmart?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they wouldn't even say the name of their company because nobody wanted to work there. And so I said, if you get the CEO on the phone and he tells me you actually want to play in the internet game, then I'll take the interview, right? That's how cocky I was on this, and I can't believe it happened. But I did. My very next meeting was Mike Duke, who was the CEO of the world's largest company, and he said, "I'm from Georgia Tech. I can't believe Amazon's kicking our ass. You got to come and help us." And the only reason I really got the job is because really nobody else wanted it. And I said I'd be there 6 months or 5 years, and it turned out I was there 8 years, and luckily got to live through probably the biggest digital transformation in the world. So, and it was right there, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I was actually ready to not retire, but I was going to take a year off after 8 years at Walmart. It's kind of exhausting. I was on the plane every week, and I was going to join the advisory board of Pinterest, and of course, right timing, CTO decides to leave, and they're like, "Oh, you should really become the CTO, and you should start really soon because I can't tell you, but you should start soon." So I started 2 weeks before they went IPO, and it turned out to be, it's been a great couple of years. So Pinterest is a set of boards. This happens to be my boards. I pin everything from things I'm interested to build and artwork that I'd like to. I see cocktail recipes and wine cellars. You can use it for pretty much anything. Quick lesson on how we make money. And after this, I'll tell you why this is important. Weekly active users is what we call WOW. The number of people who come to the platform every week obviously drives impressions to the site. So every person that comes to the site sees a number of pins, and of course, there's a number of slots that we set, and some of those slots are ads. So the percentage of ads that you have on the platform is how we make money on that, and then that drives CPM, which drives revenue. So this really talks about WOW. What we're trying to drive up on weekly active users is growth, right? We want more people to come to the site to drive more impressions. The number of impressions for wow is what we call engagement. That's how many people are coming. That's why TikTok throws you all those crazy funny videos, because they want you to keep scrolling and they want you to slide right to see number 2 or part 2 or whatever, because they want you to stay on the site as long as possible. And then of course the percentage of ads versus the impressions. You don't want to make the ads too heavy, because then people think your site is full of ads. And so the dial up and dial down of how important it is. If you go look on like Google Shopping, for example, and if you search on Google Shopping for white Nike tennis shoes, you're going to get 100% ads. But on the other surfaces, you get just very few, like sort of 15-20% ads. And then all of that comes up to what advertiser value. If you show enough ads and people click through enough ads, then they're willing to bid up, and that's how we make money. That's how the entire ad business works. And the reason that's important is, as you probably saw about a year ago, Zuckerberg, got up on stage, and our senators, the people that are running this country, had no idea how Facebook makes money. That's how Facebook makes money. That's how Pinterest makes money. That's how the whole advertising world makes money. If you haven't seen that, it's really funny. So I'm gonna, Nitin asked me to talk about these 5-6 things that I thought I would just sort of talk a little bit about what's happening in the e-commerce industry. A lot has happened over the last 12 months that I think is pretty, it's driving like the entire industry crazy, and also to make some pretty big moves. Number one that you asked about is privacy. What's happening with privacy? Apple and Facebook are in this epic battle about who's more private and what's going to happen. The changes of Apple have really made a dramatic shift in what's happening in the industry. So the privacy changes have really changed the ad industry literally from top to bottom. And the main reason it's changed is because of visibility. You no longer, if you're an advertiser and you want to spend on a platform, you actually don't have visibility on whether that ad actually worked anymore. It's very much like what's happening with TV. When in the old days, when you advertise on TV, you literally have no idea whether somebody saw the ad and then went to the store and bought your Tide or whatever happens. If you're doing a Super Bowl ad, it's really just brand ads at this point, because you no longer can use this data for performance. So as a result, it's changed spend. So spend on the industry has gone down in some cases and up in other places. And what you're seeing is sort of a widespread of advertisers like saying, I don't want to be just on Facebook anymore. And so they're spreading out to all types of different platforms, including TikTok and Pinterest. And there was a boycott last year and a few things like that has really helped the advertising world diversify their spends across the board. And it's been pretty interesting. The other thing what happens is once you sort of get pushed into a box and you say, I can't understand who's spending anymore, then you start building all these sort of quote unquote private sandboxes. So if Target knows who you are and I know who you are, but we can't share with each other who you are, you build this private sandbox with a third party, and then you send all that data to the third party, and then they tell you, well, okay, out of these 100 users, these 50 converted, and they won't say who, but 50 of these converted on this ad, and 100, other 50 didn't convert. And so you're seeing this huge amount of industry going into these privacy sandboxes. And that really affects things like targeting. And all of you have seen ads when you go to one website and you click on a site and then you flip over to 10 other sites. Like, how does Facebook know that I was looking at a Wayfair, shoe rack or something? And it's because this retargeting is all essentially gone away. It will all go away. This is what third-party cookies is doing. How many people are iOS in here and Apple users? Android? So it's 2/3, 1/3. Basically, that's US. That's the US, and mostly California. It's actually getting 50-50 in the rest of the US, but around the world, it's more like 60-40 Android. Android and Google will follow suit, and they just pushed it one more year, but all of this retargeting stuff is going to go away without it, and it's a huge, and it turns out retargeting, the reason that you see all this on the internet is because it's the #1 converting advertising type on the internet. So that's why they're always chasing you around the internet. The reason that's important is because now ad relevance goes down. When you go to a website now, your ads are actually gonna look pretty weird. Like I'm, sometimes I'm even on Pinterest. Sometimes I see like, I don't need yoga pants, right? I do some yoga from time to time, but I don't need yoga pants. And so the ability for advertisers to know exactly who to target is actually going down. And then you go back into this world where everybody's going to build these big estimation sandboxes. Well, we know we got this much traffic and we're going to estimate that this many people converted. And now the world is turning into this big box, and all of this is data. So I'll talk a little bit about why that's important, because there's a huge amount of data platform work that's going on in the industry. There's a huge amount of demand for data scientists and analysts in the industry, all because of this huge change that's happening. My brother happens to work at Facebook, which makes it fun dinner conversations, but they're spending over 1,000 people on rebuilding their entire platform in order to support a new world where it's all privacy centric. Why is this all happening? It's pretty interesting. This is a very interesting slide. I'm a member of the CTO forum, and we're partnered with Harvard Business School to teach CTOs, just what's happening in the industry. And this is an amazing slide when you look at it. So what this shows is the percentage of profit that Apple has been making off their different platforms over the years. And when you go up to 2012, what you see is this huge jump. Their profits are all coming from the App Store now. And so the only way they can defend their App Store is by building out some capability, and that their capability is privacy. They're basically saying, we're going to be the safest, best platform on the internet for people to use, because you look at phones these days, you almost can't tell the difference between a Samsung phone and an iPhone at this point, right? They're essentially commodities. So really what they're battling is safety. It's actually really unfortunate, because when you look at China and you look at all the other industry behemoths, Facebook and Apple should not be enemies, right? They should be combining together and building a better internet for all of us. And you see that with all the Chinese websites are cooperating. They're building these ecosystems together. There's a lot more noise in China these days about government versus big tech in China. But in general, they're a fairly cooperative bunch. Of course, they're competitive, but they're not like literally attacking each other, saying, you're evil and we're great. And it's unfortunate, I think, because the two biggest companies, or nearly the biggest companies of the world, are essentially pitted against each other and turning the industry against each other. So feel free to ask questions if you want in between too. I forgot to mention that too. I'll be happy if you want to just jump in. The other question was related to COVID and what's been the COVID impact. I think in the presentation I did, we talked about this normal, what's normal these days. And I called it, it's all abnormal at this point. You look at graphs like this, you never see graphs like this for any kind of mature company. And you see graphs like this, you see graphs like this. I mean, this is just chaos, right? It's absolutely chaos out there. And it's funny that when we're doing analysis now that we've gone a year through it, we almost are skipping 2020 and sort of analyzing 2019 growth rates with 2021 growth rates, because 2020 is so chaotic that you can't really understand what's been going on. So again, back to the data analysis work, I was looking at, this was for March 2020, right as the pandemic is hitting. You looked at, overall sales and retail dropped 10%, huge. Personal healthcare grew, 5%. Clothing sales dropped 50%. Furniture, drinking dropped like 30%. These are massive numbers, right? I mean, just doesn't happen. And this is why the industry has been so disrupted from a supply chain standpoint. Not just because of COVID, because demand curves have been off the charts. This was, I'm going to talk a little bit about the winners and losers, but if you look at this, obviously you guys know who was using Uber and Lyft a year ago. Nobody, right? I mean, it was dead, right? 80% down, right? And these massive changes in this, and not only sharing, but also even the building of cars. People weren't going anywhere, so you didn't need cars, and it changed it pretty massively. And then we start talking about things like this, which is Netflix was a massive winner, right? And there was a whole bunch of companies, including Pinterest, which was a massive winner. Time spent at home is a metric that you can buy from, you can actually buy this from Google and several other companies that aggregate location data, and they know whether you're at home or at work or at school or just out traveling. And when you map time spent at home, companies like Netflix and Pinterest spike way up. We actually saw in the UK and France, they all went back to school. It was like last week on Tuesday, and we saw a drop in engagement. We're like, what's going on? It turns out all the millennials essentially went back to school and they're not on Pinterest anymore. It's amazing. So it's pretty amazing. Or all Gen Zers were going back to school. So there was a huge amount of what we call COVID pull forward. So Netflix, Pinterest, Twitter, Peloton, of course, Audible, all these companies had a huge amount of pull forward where user growths were off the chart. And then e-commerce platforms. So all the big e-commerce platforms spiked through the roof because everybody's buying online. You look at things like DoorDash, I think I'll put it a little bit later. Cloud providers, boom, right? All of them exploded because everybody's moving to the platform. So AWS, Azure, AMD and Intel had huge quarters, and all the infrastructure spending. And of course, everyone knows about Zoom. They happened to go public. I think they went public the same day Pinterest did. And they've had an amazing year, and all the work from home tools have had an incredible year. And now what's happening is everybody's lapping those growth quarters, and you're seeing these huge tanks. Like Netflix announced basically flat growth, and their stock plummeted because they're saying, "Hey, you got all your user growth," and everyone was saying, "It's pull forward, it's pull forward." That's what they've been calling it. It's pull forward COVID effect. Pinterest is going to the same problems where we had so many people coming to Pinterest, and now we're essentially looking at U.S. growth rates that have stabled up. There was another question about, is retail still relevant? Yes, sir.
Mr. King, so you said that some companies like Netflix are kind of now dealing with this drop off. How do you see companies that saw the success trying to recapture it? Do you see any like common things that are emerging that, hey, we've got all this growth and we can maintain that momentum by doing X, Y, and Z? Have you seen anything like that, sir?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Even with Pinterest, that's what happened. Of course, is we got spikes and things like, how do I teach my kid home? How do I teach them at home? Like I need lesson plans for my kid, right? I need to build a desk for my office, and I need to cook out of my pantry, and we had a huge amount of that going on. And then what happens? Everything else plummets. Like we have a huge amount of travel business. We have I'm traveling. I'm planning my wedding. Plummeted, gone. Yeah. And so it has actually, what's changed is the ability to be super agile. So I was talking to Airbnb, for example, and they went straight to like, hey, we've got COVID safe, places, no touch, never meet the host, touch free, right. Sanitize. Everybody who was super fast were the ones that were able to recover quickly. And it's actually happened on the reverse side. And to some extent, they were ready for that. They were more ready for that. Even companies like, I'm still pissed at Comcast and Xfinity for my crappy internet service at home. It's killing me. Even now, it's killing me. Today, I had another app. It's just like, oh my God, could you guys get it together? So sorry if somebody works for Xfinity, but they're killing me. I actually did escalate it even. I tried to use some CTO powers, but it didn't work. Sometimes it works, not too often, but anyway, it's really a reaction thing. The other thing that you saw was a huge amount of companies trying to jump in. So seeing companies like Hopin, everybody who's trying to break in to like work from home tools, if you will. And it's funny, I watch Google. They dumped like 500 engineers on Google Meets, and they made a ton of improvements really quick on it. And now that we've gone back to the office, the Google Meets on my laptop is better than the one that's in our office. So I'd rather be on my laptop in the office than on the computer for Google Meets in the home. So there's been a lot of activity where companies have not yet switched back as well. And I think I don't know, Delta has screwed it all up again, right? So who knows what's going to happen? Any other questions? All right. Is retail still relevant? And really what I think was being asked here, our store is still relevant. And what I showed here, I grabbed this from last week's, we have a weekly business review, and this is it's a pretty interesting graph, but basically what it shows is shopping overall on e-commerce. The gray line is 2020, 2021 is going on, and what's happening is you're seeing 2021 dipping below 2020. And what's happening? Are people buying less? No, they're going to the store, right? They're going back. And you actually seen, I was in Savannah last week, and there's people out shopping. I mean, people don't believe COVID exists, I think, in some cases, but there's a lot of people going back, and they're just tired of doing everything inside. That's period. So I think companies like Walmart, which I think did an awesome job, they tripled down. We had launched grocery when I was there, but they went all in on grocery pickup and delivery right after after COVID hit, and they, extremely accelerated their launch plans for the ability to pick up in store. And as a result, they boomed through the. We can talk a little bit about Walmart later, but they boomed through the entire COVID process because they were able to react really quick to people not wanting to go to the store. But now they're all coming back, and it's funny. I keep seeing all my friends still work there, and you still keep seeing, when the checks come and the unemployment checks come, you're seeing still the same kind of spikes we used to see when we get tax refunds at Walmart. You're seeing TV sales go way up. People are like buying new TVs and all that. So there's still lots of activity of people going in the stores. And I think this might be there's a couple more questions. One of the questions was, why do some companies win and others don't? And this kind of gets into my other discussion about digital transformations of companies. So I did a deck called Digital Transformation that I presented, I don't know, it's got to be 100 times at this point. And it really talks about what Walmart was going through. And frankly, nearly every company goes through. And it's often referred to as Innovator's Dilemma. And if you haven't read that book, it's a great one. It talks about how when companies make lots of profits, it's hard for them to disrupt themselves, basically. And Walmart effectively was going through this. Walmart was going through, they spent a ton of money on, they used to be known as the technology powerhouse in the industry way back in the 80s. They put in the first satellite networks, they put in the first sort of computerized, digitized distribution systems, and really invested. And then it became really fashionable to outsource IT, sort of through the 90s and into 2000. And when I came on board, there was many teams that were like 80% outsourced to third parties. The technology hadn't been touched in 10 years, and they were just milking it, on and on. And so you see a ton of companies that do this. And it's hard because you're really, every dollar you spend here takes away from the bottom line, goes straight to the bottom line. So if you can get another year out of the server, then you just added, a huge amount of profit to your company that quarter. So broken business model and technical relationship. I'm sure you've heard about this in your e-commerce and your MIS classes. You should be a technical person, should know about the business and understand how, what the business problems are. Ineffective technology operating model. They were working on, 100 people working on projects that were 18 months long. That doesn't work, and it hasn't worked for years. They didn't have good decision makers. I mean, one of the things I put in my deck talking about Pinterest was, I remember my first month at Pinterest, we were in some meeting, and we made some pretty important decision, and we walked out of the meeting and we went and started working on it. And I was like, oh my God, we didn't have to go to the committee to get approval of the decision that we made. And that's the difference with you Pinterest and Walmart. There's no committees, right? And so you get into these crazy committees because you have all these lawyers and risk. And I know the banking industry and the finance industry are heavy with this because of compliance reasons. But in general, this was just overhead. And then just a huge amount of tech debt. They milked the assets forever. So I broke the problem up into really 3 things. I'll only just talk briefly about one of them. I broke it up into team. Do we have the right team? Are we going to, build, what kind of tactics are we going to use? And then what kind of technology we're going to do? And I think the only one I put in here, the first one was this team concept. Organizations that aren't agile run into problems like this. When you went into a Walmart store, you couldn't use your Walmart.com app to look up prices, and oftentimes the prices were different. There was no benefit between the two. And what I call this, and most people call this, is like you ship your org chart, right? You develop things based on, the people that are in this org, they ship this, and then the people in this org, they ship that, and there's no tie back between the two. And so when I came on, I was in charge of the left-hand side. I ran all the e-commerce technology stacks and the cloud and all that, and the CIO ran the storage technology stack. And as a result, we got this dichotomy between when you walked into the store, you had a terrible experience. And when you went online, you couldn't see what you bought in the store and all that kind of stuff. Classic. So when we reorged everything, and it was a massive reorg. At the time, I had 2,500 people working for me, and there were 10,000 people working in the CIO's team. And so we literally switched the whole thing. So I took over what was called retail, and I ran everything that customers can see. So registers, the distribution centers, to all the supply chain efforts, all the e-commerce piece, all the merchandising stuff. And the CIO ran all the back office stuff, everything finance, HR systems, all the compliance systems and all that. And it turned out we used a shared technology stack. And guess what? Not overnight, but pretty close to overnight. We weren't duplicating efforts, and we massively changed the interaction between people thinking about the customer first instead of that. And Amazon's books all talks about the customer and customer first and customer centricity. And that's a main reason. The other thing I tell often on this story is that only 30% of the leaders of those teams survived the transformation. 30%. It's a crazy number. Most digital transformation teams, I talked to hundreds of CIOs, CTOs, they'll say 50%, but it's really more like 30, right? They've moved quite a bit of people around.
What would you say that those leaders had in common?
That
survived.
They were willing to change, 100%. And the thing I had at Walmart was, I was the new guy. I'd been there a couple years. I've been there 2.5 years. And they talked about the e-commerce train since 1999. And I've been there, I came in 2007. I forgot what it was exactly. But anyway, there was a lot of this all outlast you, hey, you're the new guy, and you're going to be here 2 years, and then the next new person will come, and then I'll outlast that person. And so they just settled in, that sort of thing. A lot of people call it the frozen middle. That's the problem. You get the leadership team sort of yeah, here's what we got to do. And then you go down to the next level and yeah, that sounds good, but I got this shit I got to deliver, right? And you can't move the overall team. And so you have to shift. And, there's a lot of sayings out there about, reorg, reorgs are, things that will help transformation. But the other thing you hear a lot, and I've used as mantra for a long time, is I never fired somebody too early. It seems kind of harsh, but you pretty much know whether somebody's on board or not, right? And how much time do you want to invest in trying to get people on board? And I had to make some really hard calls. There's a couple of people that I still to this day are good friends of mine that had to leave. They had to go because they just couldn't make the leap. They either didn't have the technical skills or they didn't have the ability to, go forward. So I'll talk a little bit about why that's important a bit later. But it was a dramatic shift. And on the other two, I didn't put any tech in there, but it was really about modernizing the architecture. We went fully cloud. We used agile practices. We literally, I broke the team up. I said there was really only 3 things I want from the teams. I don't want any 100-person teams anymore. Every team's got to be 10 people or less. I want to have everybody on the same tool sets. We moved everybody to GitHub and to Jira and all that. And then I want everybody to ship their code every day. I want to drop every day. That's really the only thing I changed. And that seems like a little amount of things, but you can, if you've been in software at all, shipping a piece of code, dropping your code every day means you have to have a whole QA process, and you have to have automated builds, and you have to invest in all the underlying technology that requires that makes a modern organization. So that's really the other piece that I talked about. Future of commerce. This is a good one. I get this question a lot. And I don't know how to answer this exactly, except like this. So first of all, what you're seeing, I'm on the Wayfair board, 100% digital business, has been for years, right? The founders of Wayfair have been at this since back to 99 and 2000. And if you look at the history of them, the way they built their business is they had like 150 different e-commerce websites. And they were just, selling this on that site and this on that site. And they had all this distribution center and they were just going on and on. And after about 6-7 years of that, they consolidated it down to like 5 different websites. The thing that's interesting right now is they're opening stores, right? And you go, what? A fully digital business is opening stores? Why would they do that? And it's really because this touch, you're buying a couch, you're buying a chair, you want to actually see something. And it is the same as like a Bonobos, if you've ever used, I think I'm wearing Bonobos now, it's a Walmart company. Where you go to the store and you try stuff on and then they ship it to your house. You don't buy it and take it away in a bag right there. So this is the same kind of thing. So this showrooming capability. And the other thing that you can do is what we did with Walmart is you can forward deploy inventory into a warehouse that you might as well open up to customers. Right, and especially with big stuff, like you want to carry this table. You know how much it costs to ship one table from a warehouse to your house? It's a lot. But if you have a store in San Jose that people are looking at, then you can forward deploy all that and ship out of that store, and it's significantly cheaper to do that. So especially for big stuff, it's like that. But time to market, obviously Amazon's got these little micro hubs all over the place now. So first of all, the second one is phones, glasses, AR. Obviously, you saw the Facebook announcement. They've got the new Ray-Bans coming out. We'll see how many people I've seen wearing those. I don't know. It should be interesting. My brother already ordered a pair. I can't wait to try it. Actually, I think it might be cool on my mountain bike, right? Going down the hill instead of having this big, GoPro on my helmet or whatever. But I think the phone and glasses and AR in particular are really going to change the shopping experience. Even when you're in a store or in your house, I'm sure you've played with this where you can use Wayfair or plenty of other sites and now let you put a table like in your room, like, oh, will that table fit my room and all that kind of stuff. That technology is getting better and better. We use a lot of computer vision and the 3D modeling technology on Pinterest. So there'll be a ton of that, including phones that'll allow you to look at stuff more 3D. And I think that'll change shopping quite a bit. AR right now, Snap has like 600 people working on AR, and right now they're making all, you can put cats on your head and all that stuff. I'm not a big Snap user, but they are investing heavily in that because they know the future is going to be all AR based. Showrooming, I talked about. Live shopping is a huge trend right now, and everyone's talking about live shopping because it's massive in Asia at this point. Basically, it's if you haven't seen it, it's just huge in Asia. And we've talked about why hasn't it picked up in the US as much. And China doesn't have YouTube, and so that's probably the main reason. And so the US, there's a question of whether, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what is live shopping?
Live shopping is like QVC, it's like infomercial kind of level. It is massive outside the US. There is so many shows. You can turn on thousands of channels at this point and do live shopping, say, oh, I love that, I want to buy it. And they're really doing a live show where they're selling stuff. And it's just like QVC. It is huge in China in particular, but pretty much all over Asia. And so everyone's like, oh, it's going to catch on. It's going to catch on. There's got to be 50 live shopping startups at this point. The question is it really going to catch on in the US? And I think there's so much YouTube out there that do you really want to watch, it live? I don't know if you want to tune into the show and that sort of thing. But I think it's hot because most companies are global, and I think it'll continue to get interesting. I put a line through social shopping because everyone talks about social shopping. I want to share this with my buddy and see what they think. What do you think of these shoes? And we've been talking about this since, oh my God, since eBay days, and it's never worked. So I don't think it's going to work. Like the time social shopping is asynchronous, not synchronous, as I'm saying. I don't think there's going to be a big, heavy social shopping aspect. I could be wrong, but this is my personal opinion. I literally have been trying to work on social shopping for like 15 years, and it just hasn't worked.
So how does Pinterest do social shopping?
Yeah, the way Pinterest does is it's sharing basically. So you can share a board with someone else, and what we see is boards are generally shared with just one other person. We see a lot of, like, if I'm doing a home design, I share with my architect. or if I'm doing wedding planning, I share it with my wedding planner, or if I'm trying to redecorate my bedroom, I'll share it with my roommates and things like that kind of stuff. It's really not like this huge amount of like, we tried back in the 90s, like there was all this group shopping, like, hey, I want to buy this GoPro. If you get 100 more people to buy the GoPro, it'll be like $6 cheaper or whatever. And you're like, none of that. Who wants to wait? I'll just click it and pay the $6 extra bucks. Right? It's like, I haven't seen it go. And a lot of people put this on like, hey, this is going to be big. And I still don't think it's going to be big. The next big one I think is huge. And you look at those of you, have you heard of Rothy's shoes? Anybody wearing Rothy's right now? Rothy's is a huge Pinterest customer. But what they have done is they've effectively invented like 3D weaving plastic technology, right? And they're doing it all in warehouses right now, but there's no reason that technology can't be used sort of massively customize. And you've seen this like Nike shoes mostly, but somewhat in Zara and some of these other places, you can do customizations and that sort of thing. And they'll print you these art they've done a lot of, where you can do posters and books. We were just talking about this book. When you order this book online, they don't have it in the warehouse. They print it and ship it to you, right? This book right here. They print it there and ship it to you. They don't have a stack of them sitting in the warehouse anymore. So, and what's really happening, and it's part of the reason a lot of people say, like, I think big retail stores, you know, when 3D printing comes out, everyone's gonna have this 3D printing at their home and they're gonna print, you know, their shoes for themselves. Have you ever seen like what these 3D printers are? These things are massive machines. And not only that, they're expensive to maintain. They use like really expensive materials. And so my personal opinion is that while we'll have warehousing go down, I always think about these warehouses that have car parts in them. And they've got thousands of car parts that are mostly made out of plastic. And they're just sitting there, you know, there's probably 50 of every part in these huge warehouses, and they probably only get one order every month for these things. All that's going to go away. So because that's going to be 3D printing, but they're going to be printed at like warehouse size, like Walmart size buildings that can feed in all the materials that you need in order to feed the 3D printer. And there's not a lot of people talk about that, but that's not that far away. It's pretty close. And it's things like Rothy's and these mass customization shops that are going to do this. I mentioned Zara. Fast fashion is coming, and you guys have probably used it. Anybody use Shein? Shein customers? Yeah, there's a few. Shein's one of the biggest clothing retailers that nobody knows about, and #1 followed business on Pinterest. Crazy. They're massive. SHEIN. Huge business. I bought a few things on it, but it is essentially a fast fashion business. They copied sort of the Zara model and a few others and have made it just incredibly cheap to buy clothes. I know millennials don't like to buy, you know, so many clothes. You guys are into the recycling thread-ups kind of stuff now, but it's a massive business. And I think what's happening now is you can respond to trends so fast now that these big marketplaces in fast fashion are gonna rock it. And I just did a talk. This Wall Street Journal reporter totally scammed me. He said he wanted to talk about something else, and then we ended up talking about AI. But anyway, it was fine. But what I think he was talking about retailers and why retailers are now past all the other industries, including banking and insurance, which seems crazy on the amount of spend they're spending on AI. And they're like, "Why? How could that be? How could retailers be using AI more than an insurance company or a banking company?" And it's because it literally helps every single thing that they do. Amazon, you know, gets a lot of flack because they're talking about taking out all the cashiers in Whole Foods and putting in the Amazon Go style stores. That's all AI driven. It's all computer vision AI driven, right? The trucking systems that they're all building, the drone systems are all building, are all built on AI. All the systems that are deciding what items go on the shelf, that's all being done by merchants pretty much today. All that's gonna be done AI. Pricing's all AI, it's all AI already. So every part of the retail experience is gonna be powered by AI. So those are the 7 areas that I could come up with over the last couple of days. So other questions? Who else thinks I've got this right? Yeah.
Do you have any like time frame or anything for when, you know, like you're talking about the Amazon Go store? So, you know, there's like 5 years, 10 years where we'll see this
Yeah, it's gonna be a while. And the reason I say that, because we played around this with that Walmart. And it's one thing to go into a 7-Eleven size store and look at stuff, but think about, I always tell people this, think about the lipstick aisle. It's like, oh my God, what are you gonna do there? You know, the lipstick aisle, like how is the computer gonna pick out this one lipstick? Like which lipstick did I pick up? And I put it back in the wrong place? Oh my God. I think about that. And I also think about things like, lots of stores have, I mean, a Walmart store has about 200,000 items in it at any one time. They have 1 million items in it in a year. So they're cycling 600,000 items through this thing all the time. And every single item that has to go in has to be trained, you know, it's the reason that those work is because they know every single side of the bottle and they know exactly where you pull it off a shelf and somebody can reface it and all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be a while. There's a lot of cool companies working on this, but it's the good news is camera technology is getting way better. You imagine I can put a camera in each spot, and right now it's super expensive. And the other problem is my friend works at a company that does all the lighting for Target. And the reason I say this is because all the lights have RFID Bluetooth detectors in it. And so they can track, they know where you're walking around the store. And they used to put them on the shopping carts and nobody knew about it, but now they're all on the lights. So just so you know, you're being tracked. So, the problem is they did a first generation, we did these robots at Walmart too, where they would scan up the aisles. And by the time we got 500 of these out, they were on the like 3rd generation of the store. So we like could throw those away. We had 4,000 stores. We only got it to about 500 stores. And then essentially you want to throw those robots away. How are you going to get, you know, 5,000? So it has to be in the ceiling. You have to. And then by the time you get them all deployed and all the targets, that's what you're saying. You get 3 generations of lighting in the stores. That's just killing you from a logistics standpoint. So I think it's going to be a while before like Target size stores and things like that can do it.
And Safeway took another approach. Safeway has these smart cards.
Yeah.
You stuff in and it
Yeah.
automatically stands and check
Yeah,
out.
that's right. They're super expensive and, you know,
$5,000 each.
yeah, you don't want the homeless people to take take them down the street, you know, they have to lock them up right when you go down, but it's
They don't
pretty
need to
good.
take it out.
Yeah, how am I doing on time? I'm getting close. So yeah, it's a good question. But I do think it's getting better and better. And like I said, camera technology, every year it gets half as cheap and twice as good. So it's getting better and better and better all the time. And that's actually part of the logistics problem. Like, do I want to put it in here or wait another 6 months and I'll have a better camera and that sort of thing, especially you're going to put in like 5,000 stores. Like it's really hard to, and you're not putting one in these stores, you're putting like 300 in the stores, right? So it's a big commitment on these sides. So that's why Amazon Go's tech will be a while. It may be, we talked about RFID tags and that I've been back and forth on this because RFID tags essentially, when you go to the store and you walk out and they almost beep off you and that sort of thing. Levi's has it they're embedded in your jeans now. So they don't actually have to put price tags on it. And they put it in the manufacturing process. So when they come in the door, they know that how many jeans have come through the door and they scan it. I think that's a better technology because you can put everything in the cart and just like run it through an RFID scanner or whatever, and then you'll understand everything that's in there. The challenge has been, how do I put an RFID tag on every single item? Back to my point. When at Walmart, we were selling 25-cent, American flags during 4th of July. Are you going to put an RFID tag on that? So how do you do it for everything that's in the store? Is the problem. So it'll work in some stores, clothing for sure, but we'll see. That'll be an interesting tag. Should put that on there. What else? You had a question? Yeah.
This will make like the prices of the things like more expensive.
Who does?
Like if you put the tag on it.
Yeah, it does. It does. If you can do it during the manufacturing process, and that's one of the reasons when Walmart did it, we picked 2 stores that we tagged every item that went through. But you can imagine every single box is coming in, every single item is tagged. It's almost back to the old days. My first job was working at a Payless drugstore, and I literally would use one of those old style ticket guns and like hit every can of tuna. Like that's the kind of tech that we had to do because you were pinning it on. And then of course people can rip them off or they'll like switch them like they do. People they'll print their own UPC codes and stick them they'll put like a Cheerios box and they'll stick them onto a TV and then go up to the scanner, the self-scan checkout and try and get through and all that stuff. That's why you have to weigh your items in the self-checkout line because they know how much everything weighs now. So they can kind of test it, right? So yeah, that's it. If you can figure out how to do it during the manufacturing, there's actually some really interesting tech coming that's like printed ink. So if you can print the label with this like invisible like electronic ink, it might get cheap enough that you can do it. It's like invisible barcodes and that sort of thing. It's coming. I saw that demo about 5 years ago, but it's still way off. Like everybody will have to use it, like the UPC code. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
I have a question about showroom,
Yeah.
because if you're going in store, I think one of the biggest things that people just like to have the items immediately, but then you also can't get it shipped to their house. So with the time that it takes, because a big company like Walmart, Amazon has the infrastructure to get it shipped this time within 2 days or whatever. but
Yeah.
Other companies won't be able to get it out as fast without additional shipping costs. So how does that play into the wait time?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. What you're really seeing, like Wayfair, for example, is doing this. They're actually going to make their delivery service as a service. So similar to like Amazon, you can right now put your item in Amazon and have your own website and have it shipped from Amazon, even though you never bought it from Amazon. So you're seeing these delivery services come alive. Of course, it adds expense to your overall capabilities, but and I've seen this across the board. There's a bunch. I was just talking to this startup that it's not that big. It's a pretty big startup now. Like if you're a makeup provider and you provide relatively small items and you're kind of a small distributor, most of your shipping times is like 4 or 5 days, and nobody wants that anymore, right? And so you send it to these guys, they warehouse it, and they get it to you in 2 days. So it's you're seeing a lot more consolidation of these back-end services across the board. And I think that'll continue to happen. Somebody else had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, Amazon recently launched this purchase items.
Yeah, that's Amazon Go. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, just an experience to everything. If that's something that-
It's funny. I was just in, I forget what airport I was in. And you never know. I was in Atlanta and they had an Amazon Go kiosk in the airport. I'm like, wow, that's it was basically like one of those little stations they have on the side that you can get like candy and stuff like that. You walked in the door, you picked your stuff, and then you walked out the door. It was really cool. So I think, like I said before, I think it'll work at this convenience size store and smaller. I think like a Yankee Candle. That's a perfect example of like, you don't need somebody working there, right? You know, you need somebody working there to help sell stuff, but you don't need somebody to help check them out, right? And that I think will be that'll be really common. The big with Amazon Go, if you've ever used it, you actually check in when you go in, right? So they know who you are, the personalized stuff. So they know whether they have to keep an eye on you and all that stuff too, right? So so that tech is getting better and better, but I'm telling you, it's not cheap to put in. The camera technology alone to outfit it is super expensive, but training the AI is the bigger problem. Yeah, one back here. Yeah.
The shopping experience, the shopping experience, because we don't really have.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We got that at Walmart all the time, and I just heard this. Actually, that was the response that Amazon just gave about the tech they want to put into Whole Foods. Because one of the reasons you go to Whole Foods is because you have people there that are knowledgeable about the stuff that are there, and they're like love working there. And so what the storyline is that checkouts and all that are sort of non-beneficial to the selling process. You're like, you get less people working on that and more people out selling and helping. That's the answer. And that's not a lie. I mean, if you could, for sure, the costs of labor will go down, but the idea is to put more people out on the floor to help sell. And because this service selling and then like, if you go to Bonobos, that's part of the beauty of the thing. You got somebody who's super knowledgeable about fashion there and that sort of thing. And they don't have to check me out. They're like, oh, boom, 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 done. It'll be at your house, right? It's great. But so you may not get the instant gratification, but it is a cool experience. Plus you can shrink the size of your store by like 90%, right? Do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking about like those invisible barcodes.
Mm-hmm.
You think like for something like that to happen, you think it has to be like some universal standard? Of
Yeah, definitely.
And we were talking in class like the other day about like internet protocols, like those are like specific like committees, right? Do you think like this for example?
And they suck, by the way. It's GHIN, Global the people that do that are terrible, right?
Yeah, like,
Yeah, it's the worst of the committees of the world, right? You know,
yeah, but like for those committees, do you think like just maybe like for those invisible borders, it could just be like anything that feels like a standard, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like, do you think like that can bring together like companies? Like,
yeah,
to, like to work together, like just, for example, maybe like Apple, like Apple is always like battling each other. Like, there's like some universal standard or something. Do you know, like,
I do, and you'd be surprised at how much cooperation there is on the back end already. When you look at, there's a lot of companies out there that do what's called PIM, product information management. If I'm selling a box of Cheerios to how many different retailers do I send to Cheerios? It's hundreds. And like literally in the old days, you had to send the image and the data file and like how much my price is to like every single one, a different API stream to each one. So now they have these aggregators effectively. There's a bunch out there. One's called White Spider and there's one called, I want to say Shopify, but it's not, it's called Salsify. And what you do is you set up all your items on there and then they have connections to all the different retailers. And so it doesn't matter. If I'm selling a box of Cheerios, I want it to be the same, you know, quote unquote, all across the board. That, you know, the Sam's Club and Walmart, Costco, they want to have unique items. And so there still will be, even though most of the stuff you buy at Costco says it's unique, it's just got a different label on it. Because you can't buy it on Amazon, you can't like do a price check on it. But it's essentially the same. It's a copy of something that they built. So there's some, but you'd be surprised how much cooperation. But you're right. There's some friendly competition. Amazon is they're actually good and bad in this. Like there's a lot of items right now that on Amazon that they don't put barcodes on because they only sell them on Amazon. So why even bother, right? And so there is some contention going on in the industry because that should be the universal standard. But I just put the ASIN on it, which is Amazon serial number on it, and I only sell it on Amazon. So why do I care? So there is some bifurcation on that, but that's a little Amazon getting pretty big for them. Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, you were saying that AR is basically just a toy for right now.
Yeah.
Do you see any future in it, or it would be a serious thing, like for an advertising potential, sales, things like that?
Yeah, I say that. I should preface that AR is a toy for retail right now. There are some applications. There's some great applications if you've seen demos of like somebody's trying to repair a jet engine, right? And like how much data can you show, like where does the screw go, or there's an out of alignment and they can actually show you exactly where. For massive machines that are really expensive, it's actually paying off and working pretty well. Oil pipelines, aeronautics, I forget, there's a few others that are really good. So for retail right now, it's a toy. I mean, I haven't seen like the game changer yet. That's really what I meant. Okay. Somebody over here, I saw a question. Yeah.
I had a question, and I don't want to get too much on topic, but discussion about customization was really interesting because it kind of changes the way that products are inventoried or produced. Right now, we have a lot of constraints with our supply chain.
You have no idea. If you haven't bought your Christmas presents yet, you should.
Yeah,
It's a disaster coming.
I know there's a between every industry.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of curious, e-commerce so good at selling. Are they looking backwards in the supply chain and seeing how they can reshore things or change how they produce? Or are they just kind of waiting until things go back to normal?
Yeah, no, all of the above. And I got a preview. One of the world's best supply chain experts was at the same CTO forum and was talking about what's happening in the supply chain right now. The price to ship a container from China to the US used to be $1,200 a year ago. It's $13,000 now. And so what's happening is because it's so expensive to do it, they used to ship all the containers to the US and then we'd ship stuff, we'd fill it and then ship it back with stuff for recyclers or whatever the stuff they would trash or whatever it was doing. Now they don't even care. They're just shipping back immediately, empty. The whole tankers are going back empty because they need containers, right? They're out of containers. They cannot ship enough containers. So now the problem is the whole world's container distribution is a disaster. So he was talking about there's some train station that goes up through the Ukraine all the way through Siberia. It hasn't been used in years. They're opening it back up, right? Because they need to move transportation across. I mean, it's chaos out there right now, and nobody really knows it. It's incredible because it's supply and demand. If it costs $13,000, I'm going to get it some other way. Tracking systems, trucks, you can't get trucks, you can't get, I mean, you saw Tesla's building their own tractor trailers because they can't get enough tractor trailers to move their cars to, you know, from the manufacturing facilities to the customers. It's crazy out there right now. And it's only going to get worse. And he thinks it's like November, December, January, February, March. It's a disaster, right? So yeah, he said, don't go run out and go buy toilet paper, whatever you do. That's like the worst thing you can do. But it is going to be pretty interesting. So yeah, they are being pretty creative. There's a lot of like, hey, I should just reshore it, they call it. I think, is it called reshoring? When you bring it back to manufacture in the US. The problem they're having there, they can't get the materials here to like, they can't get the plastic here to make the stuff, right? And so everything we're talking about making chips, the problem is you can't get the silica to make the chips. It's not the chips you can't get, like you can't actually get the silica. So to your point, a lot of companies, and I have some friends at Dell and AMD, Samsung and Intel, and they're all like multi-sourcing. They used to have like 2 sources and now they have like 5 sources, right? Like, oh, I should call that guy and see if they have what we need and that sort of thing. I forgot to mention the career advice stuff. I should throw this in there before we have to wrap, right?
So, yeah, how do you take advantage? I mean, these guys will graduate in a few months.
Yeah.
How do you take advantage of the situation?
Yeah.
These guys are business students, so there's an opportunity. Sounds like there's an opportunity.
Yeah, you know, and I've seen companies pop up like crazy, you know, so, you know, one of the things I was going to say on the career advice is take risk, right? Take some risk. I did not take risk early enough. And I talked about that in 99, 2000. I had a great job and I was like, oh, I wanted to do this. This is funny. When I went back to one of my old San Jose State ones from 2007, and a lot of the things I still say on here, but one of them is to take more risk, especially when you're early in your career. I'll wait for a second, but it's okay to take an internship and take an extra year of college if you want to, right? I mean, jump on, you know, go to work during the day and go to school at night. You're young, have the energy, do it now, right? While you can do it. I always say, you know, work on your communication skills. There's so many people out there that are great engineers, but they can't talk, you know, and they still don't know how to communicate with people. Work on your communication skills, negotiation skills. I mentioned this before, understand your business, please, when you come into the business. Everybody's got a job to do, but understand like where the money's coming from and where it's going and that sort of thing. You need to understand that in any part of the job. And then everyone asked me, how did I get to where I am? Like every time there was some new problem, I want to work on that. And I just raised my hand and worked on it. I didn't know how to get it done. And oftentimes I was working, I added, you know, a ton of extra work hours, but that's how I got to where I am today. I added these last night. Please stay at a company minimum 3 years. People jumping around every 2 years. You actually do not know how a company works in the first 2 years, right? And it's somewhat selfish because you're only making the company profit on the 3rd year because you actually know what you're doing now. But also that year is the year you grow as an engineer, as a business person. You know, that's a growth. If you're in a shitty ass job, jump early. Okay, fine. But if you have a decent job and it's a good company, stay 3 years, right? At least. I know that's not fashionable to say these days. 63% of the company, Pinterest, every single person in the company, 63% of the company uses our big data systems every week. So know how to use data and why. Make your decisions with data. And in order to do that, you need to know how to access the data. If you go to Facebook, they teach you the first 2 weeks that you're there, like where the data is, how to query everything. Every company should do this. That's all my CTOs, all my friends CTOs, like teach everybody where the data is, how to use the system to query it. There's lots of corporate training out there. Take advantage of it. Most people don't take advantage. It's great training. Actually, some of it's really great. And they pay for it. Guess what? They'll pay for your MBA sometimes. There's lots of great training. Learn how to promote yourself. I put this on there sort of half on, half off, because you don't want to over promote yourself, but make sure people know what you're working on and make sure your boss knows what you're working on. Don't be like over statusing and all that, but you know, oftentimes people are just like quietly in the corner doing stuff like, but learn how to promote yourself in a good way. I talked about taking risks. I said, remember the 30%. I said, say the 30%. Only 30% of the people at Walmart that were in the leadership position survived the digital transformation, and it's because they were unwilling to change, right? Be the first person to change, saying, that's a great idea, let's go do it. Let's go try it out, right? It's really not going to work against you if you're the first person on the bus to go on the chains. And I talk, the hygiene part, what I mean by hygiene is do the things that everybody needs you to do. There's like, sometimes some companies need status reports. Sometimes you have to do some documentation. Sometimes you need to like go to a code review. Sometimes you have to do a pre-read before the meeting, you know, that sort of thing. The people that are the best in my company, like my engineers that come and they've already done the pre-read. Awesome. And then somebody, hey, has everybody done the pre-read? And you see like two people like, I didn't get a chance, you know, like don't wreck it for everyone else. Do the hygiene work, do the little things that are sort of required to make you a great performance. And oftentimes they're really not that much. So anyway, those are my 7 other ones. So that's my advice. Yes, sir.
I have a question about like, when you say like stay at a company when you're,
Yeah.
mean like when you're like working full time?
Yeah.
It's like a permanent position? Because,
Yeah. I see when you're on the career path, right?
Yeah, just like, currently like, I've been hearing like different stuff regarding like internships. Because like, let's just say like a company, after like your internship, like they offer you an extension, right? And then that ends up being a year. But like, some people say like when you're earlier, younger on.
You should jump a little and get a variety.
Yeah.
It's mixed. If it's a good company, I always tell the people that are working at Pinterest, why would you not want to work at Pinterest, right? I mean, you know, you're going to jump over and go work at Airbnb. That's literally nearly the same tech stack. Sure, you'll learn in a different company and new techniques and all that stuff, but it's a pretty good gig, right? That you got. I personally feel if you have a good company and you like your boss and what you're doing, I would stay. There is a lot of people, like even in the COVID economy, my God, it seems so weird. Like people are just coming and going and I've never met them. Like, it's weird. So maybe this changes over time and everybody turns into a gig worker and that sort of thing. But I personally, I would hate that world. So must retire soon. But no, I'm going to be here a while. That's a good question.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
When you started, AI was not a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Probably till last year, you didn't hear about the term NFT. And then last time we spoke, you said that, we are exploring how NFT works.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself updated? I mean, these are some of the things that, for example, brand new, it didn't exist like 6 months ago. And now suddenly it might change the entire way Pinterest works or everything else works.
Yeah, you might hate the answer to this, but read a lot. I read a ton. I read MIT Technology Review. I don't read the news. I get all the news that I need from MIT Technology Review and from Hacker News and all that kind of stuff. I read a ton. I also hire people that are way smarter than me, right? And they keep me on my toes, and that's good. The other thing I do a lot is I talk to startups a ton. And at Walmart is easy. Pinterest is pretty easy. I can talk to companies and what they're doing. Nearly everyone is not ready for a Pinterest size company yet, or they certainly weren't ready for Walmart size. But that's pretty much how. But I would say
that 30%. Read and read.
I'm just telling you, it never ends, right? I cannot believe the stuff. I'm in a meeting sometimes and I'm like, what is that? I never even heard of it yet. I know I should be the CTO. I'm supposed to all know it, but it's not possible, right? Even at a small company like Pinterest, there's only 2,500 people in Pinterest right now. There's 1,000 engineers. I think when I left Walmart, I had 12,000 people working for me. It's crazy. So, but you can't keep track of all that. But read a lot. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see how the trend works, because right now Shein has worked incredibly well outside the US, and not many people know about it in the US, and that's on purpose. If you read the story about Shein, there's an awesome article about them. If you're into e-commerce, it's an amazing article. It's about 20 pages about how Shein came about and that sort of thing. And part of the reason they're keeping a low profile is because of that, and because it's just a huge amount of waste, right? And it's basically throwaway clothing at this point. So personally, like companies like Pinterest, we're super. I mean, we're thinking about sustainability all the time, right? Like how can we be carbon neutral and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to work in some communities and not others. But yeah, I agree, and that's why I say it'll be consumer sentiment. Really, is the question. It's a good one. Yeah, you had another question?
Yeah, this kind of having on Professor Aguilar, but he was talking about like keeping up with the industry, right? Like in the tech industry. I kind of heard like a stereotype like that, most companies are looking for like that younger generation of like new hires. So just for example, like you could be working in tech 20 years, have like all this experience, but but just like in tech in general, just working in the industry, so that's always like employees are always looking for that younger generation, just because like tech is always changing, right?
Yeah.
Always new thing like
Age discrimination, I know. I know, when I turned 50, I go like, oh man, I'm an old guy now.
yeah. So like, is that kind of true in the tech industry? Come from like CTO.
It goes back to, I think, exactly what his point was. If you go in, my chief architect, he's older than I am, and he knows about the latest technology before any one of the kids. I mean, there's no doubt. So it's all about your mindset and the learning mindset. If you walk in there and say, hey, I know this, plus you got 20 years experience about how to do architecture, it's a no-brainer. It's all about lifelong learning. I mean, I think the gig economy kind of is teaching people that anyway. Like, you better have a skill because you're not going to be marketable. So you better keep your skills up because you're not going to be marketable because people are just going to keep rotating through. Yeah. So yeah.
Just looking at management, where do they should want those methods?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit about the data side because I think two things happen when you understand how to make decisions with data. One, people come to you and ask your opinion, and two, you start learning how the business and the products work. So product management, for example, there's a huge shortage of product managers, and product management is essentially a combination of lightly understanding the technology, but really understanding consumer business sentiment and what's going on there. And again, that's data and long-term planning and thinking. So if you're into technology, there's a huge shortage of product people. That some are engineers, but I'd say only about half are, right? I would say. So that's a good place to start. If you're into analytics, obviously, go on the analytics side. There's massive shortage of analytics. Like my brother's trying to have 50 data science/analytics just for his Facebook. It's great. So that's another spot. Where else? We're done.
Do you want to throw some light on influencer-based economy? I mean, it looks like somebody becomes an influencer in 6 months with like 90 million followers, and then I'm talking about that ocean spray guy, for example.
Yeah, isn't that great? That was great. Actually, go read about him. He and most creators, they're exhausted. They don't know how to keep this up, and so if you don't know what he's talking about, it's like, okay, cool, that's the great sort of quote unquote TikTok video, but if you're trying to build a video every week, because I got these new glasses and check out the frames and here's how to buy, here's how to make, art or whatever. I mean, you're on all the time. You have to build these new videos because you don't get paid unless you're creating, right? Period. That's all there is to it. And so it's this long cycle of it, and it's like Pinterest is getting into this hugely, as you can imagine. There's a ton of people that create on Pinterest, and they're sponsored and all that stuff. But now there's every platform. It's a creator platform. It's crazy. The question is whether we can make it easy enough for people to maintain a living on this. And it's not even an 80-20 rule. It's like a 1% rule. 1% will make more than 100,000, and then 0.1% make a million, whatever, right? So we need to make that better and better for what percentage of people can make $100,000 or more on the platform, right? And that's what most people are after, right? If you can make a living, then right. And that might not be much of a living in Silicon Valley, but it is in lots of other places, right? Especially if it's a second gig, right? You got a question? Sorry. Cool. Am I out of time? Am I doing okay?
You can take as much time.
Okay.
If anybody who wants to leave, I know that some of your commitments and other, you can take as much time.
Got it. I'll take a few more, no problem. Got a few hundred emails to do, but it's fine. Yeah. It's all good.
I know artificial intelligence has a big impact on data analytics, but what are other aspects that impacts e-commerce specifically?
Yeah, I try not to use the word AI. Mostly I'm talking about ML, like machine learning, right? I put in AI in here because somebody asked the question for AI, but machine learning really helps literally everything. When I think about pricing. One of the first products we launched at Walmart was called Smart Pricing. And what it was essentially analyzing how much was Amazon selling this thing for, how much are each of the stores selling it for, what's the region, how much do we have in the warehouse, that sort of thing. And it's so funny. I remember the day that we turned on Smart Pricing, and the chief merchant was like gritting her teeth and like holding, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna let the computer like price all these items. And it turned out it worked. Obviously, it worked really great. But one of the things that happened, of course, is somebody put in the cost of an Xbox, instead of it being, $100 or $399, they put in $39. And so guess what? We dropped the price of Xboxes to like, $79, and guess what? We sold out all overnight. So there can be some ramifications on it. So pricing, supply chain, just routing system. Think how Uber works, right? I mean, how many drivers do I need? Where? All that's machine learning. All of it is being run by machine learning at this point. Machine learning is essentially training data. So you feed it a bunch of training data, and then you have somebody go through and they call it tagging. So somebody will go through and tag it and say, yes, that's right, no, that's wrong, that sort of thing. That's what machine learning is. In AI, you don't need the training part. It quote unquote learns on its own. That's why I try not to use AI, because there is no real AI out there. It's all just really advanced machine learning at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
So we were talking about privacy at the beginning.
Privacy, yeah.
We're also thinking about like IoT devices.
Yeah.
So how do you think that will play in like the retail world?
Oh God. It's funny. I was laughing about the Tile device versus the Apple device. You know what? Like if you put one of those Apple tokens in somebody's backpack, it'll actually tell the person's iPhone that, hey, there's been a tag tracking your movements in your back, on you for the last 20 minutes. Did you know that somebody like did that? So I agree, this is a slippery slope. And the problem, of course, is only Apple is doing that. And there's thousands of, tiny little cameras now, and like lots of tracking devices. I was thinking about putting one of these tiles on my bike, so if it got stolen, I'd be able to find it, things like that. But yeah, this is a very slippery slope, and it's the Wild West out there. You can buy this stuff on any website right now, right? And it's like, you've seen these like private ones that are, you can put on your car, your car, and then track it for the next month, right? And then just throw it away. All of it's existing, and it's the Wild West at this point. You can't block it. So, I think you guys are growing up in a world where there is no privacy, right? So I think most of you have gotten used to that. My mom is not used to that yet, but we'll see if it changes like real, government regulations. But I think it's going to be hard because the tech moves so fast that, you could be wearing a tracker right now and you wouldn't know, right? That's pretty scary, right?
One more question.
Yeah.
I'm asking you questions that I don't have an answer for.
Sure.
So there's a website that says, will robots take my job?
Yeah.
And I show it to my students and I tell them that, okay, here's a accountant, for example, and there is 90% probability that job will be automatically taken off. And so I tell them that, you need to be in that 10% and you need to train yourself.
The trainer.
Exactly. So what is that 10%? I mean, how do these guys make sure that, they are not irrelevant before they graduate, or, their job is not taken by?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I have a friend, Kevin Scott, who I'm forgetting the name of the book.
And software also is like 80-90% that those jobs will be automated, right?
Yes. So if you're interested in this, and he wrote this book. He's the CTO of Microsoft. Great guy, unbelievably smart. He wrote this book called Reprogramming the American Dream, and it was directly targeted at that question. And the point was, like, they've been saying robots are going to take people's jobs for the last 100 years, right? And his point is, what's happening is robots can do a menial job, so don't be the menial job person. Be the person that knows how to do accounting that applies to the supply chain, business. So you're tying these two together, right? Be the programmer of robots is what one of the things he says in the books there. He grew up in, I think, rural Pennsylvania. And he went back to his hometown. There's a lot of guys that are like working on tractor equipment. And what he was not surprised to find was these big combine machines are being tracked and routed by freaking, by space, basically by satellites. And there's a transmitter on there that, guess what? It needs to be programmed and it needs to be trained. Like, where's the outside of the field and like all this kind of stuff. And so those guys they haven't been disrupted, but they're not sitting in a combine all day, driving up and down the field, right? And so it's the combo of the two. Robots can do one menial job really well. They can't do the combo, right? Yeah.
So you said that you would say a company, 3 years and bouncing around is like a downside.
Yeah.
But if I'm like in a company like Pinterest and I would like to change like areas, it's able. Like, I want to.
Most companies have that now. Salesforce has probably the best example. Like, we've worked for a big company. When you work for a startup, you're going to be jumping around jobs like all the time because they just need you to do something new next week anyway. But big companies have learned this problem, and what you really see is attrition rates go up. Voluntary attrition rates go up between year 2 and year 3. And so what Salesforce did was they did this internal job fair. Like, hey, I have an opening in my department. Do you want to come? You want to come work in my department? And now most companies have this. So we have an internal transfer policy. Again, try and understand what you're doing before you jump. Like, typically it's like, hey, I'm getting bored working on the ad engine. I want to go work on the creator side. Great, that's awesome, right? But you're not changing like disciplines per se. But it's really most companies, even Pinterest size, that I only have 1,500 engineers. We have lots of opportunities to move around. So I would take advantage of that, but don't jump so often that it becomes like, oh God, she's moving again, right? But it usually, and I do mean company, and I don't mean job per se. So you can stay in and do different jobs in different companies. Yeah, and like I said, it used to be that when I looked at a resume and they'd only been a company 1.5 years, 2 years, or 1 year, 2 years, that I was like, I don't even look at that resume anymore. That's pretty common nowadays. But my point is, like, you really don't grow. You really don't understand what's going on until like the middle of your second year, and then you really start cranking, right? So it is what it is, right? I know it's a different world. COVID may change all of us, but I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Who wants to actually go into an office every day or every couple times a week? Anybody? I do too. And the data we have right now, I call it 20-20-60, right? 20% never want to go back to the office ever again. 20% want to come in as many every day a week, especially at Pinterest, because we do 3 meals a day and they want to get fed. They don't want to buy stuff. And then 60% want to come like 1 to 3 days a week, right? And so that's kind of where we are. And that was true even up to like 3 months ago. But I mean, this is coming on to like how many months at this point? It's crazy.
I would tell you that don't ask for work from home option, because today work from home is your home, tomorrow work from home will be anybody else's home outside the country. And if they can do the job from home, then it can be anybody else also.
Yeah, I'm with you. And plus it's just, I don't know. Personally, I had a lot of fun at work, and I met some of my best friends at work. It's just like, it's a different world, right? So anyway, there's like 5 in the back there. Yeah, somebody do.
So lots of digital transformation on eBay and Walmart from ground up, obviously, and what's the like digital transformation is like sick, like the person on the time he's like take the first measures. So
What was that last part?
that 80% of the projects set to fail if you don't plan it correctly, or you make mistakes. So what do you when you envision making these changes, what do you exactly plan, or what do you change doing these projects to make sure it's not going to fail?
I try to I tell this story sometimes. I try not to make the same mistakes as I did the last time, right? So that's, some of it just comes with experience. We did at eBay, it was a really tough change because it seems old and pedantic now, but it was like, we were literally going from C++ to Java, and Java was not a thing yet. And I'm like, dude, the world is going Java. We're going to go Java, right? And you could not believe the resistance. I mean, nowadays it seems like such an obvious decision, but believe me, it was a leading edge decision. Even Marty Kagan will still not speak to me probably about this, but anyway, it's fine. But But, you know, back to the risk thing. I mean, you have to take some risk. And again, if you surround yourself with smart people, you can typically decide. It's funny, when I did it at Walmart, I hired 50 new people and I took 50 of the quote unquote current people in the company, and we put them all together in one team. We did this big offsite. We camped overnight in Santa Cruz and did this whole thing. And I picked probably, I don't know, 25% of the people were the wrong people. But in general, they came up with a plan. I'm not the smartest person in the room. And the funny thing on digital transformation, I tell people, like, everybody in the company already knows what things need to be done. And they just need somebody with the balls to do it, right? You know, let's just go do the damn thing, right? And it's half the time it was just like, oh, you want to go do that? Let's just go do that, right? And so I don't think it's the smartest person in the room and just like, hey, I had all the answers and that sort of thing. I just was good at listening. I understand the problems and hired the right people, right? And that's the magic of the whole thing. Yeah, that's what a leader does, right? Make sure that your great people can get shit done, right? So. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you. It was great being here.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Give him a quick round.
Go Spartans, right?
Yeah, I have a small teddy bear for you.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah, ping me on LinkedIn or whatever you like. I'm jking@pinterest.com. You want to send me a note. So most people don't take advantage of it. Last time didn't challenge, I think, everyone to do it. So I'm okay with that.
See, I won the bet. I told you guys that, you share an email address with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's something I love to do. So yeah, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer it. I usually get back pretty quick. So thanks. What's that? J King, JKIN. Yeah, straightforward. Right. So say hi and good luck with your studies. And see you around. Send your resumes in when you're ready. You're hiring. All right. Take care.
If you don't take advantage of this, it's on you. 20 minutes, all right? Leave it back. This will work.
Hillary.
Right of Ruben.
Oh, can we just move that?
We need to live here. They're gonna have a bus.
No, I took the other. At night, the 9-17, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, my skateboard.
Yeah, and you also. Yeah, you're right in front of you.
That's all. Well, I'll respond this hour. Sorry, I will come back. I was so soft. I was sweet. I did leave. I like there, I like it. I was so there. You'll understand.
How's it going over there?
I want to know if this is a temporary situation now, or can we leave?
I like it, just ran
We'll
out.
be back in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
You
nobody's
guys say that?
Yeah. Everyone who was in our class was like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah. 20 minutes. Oh, this is nice. Oh, I finally got access to the night, but I don't know where to start.
Well, he's like a
I really love you. Oh, no, I was like, I have not done that.
Yes, I can.
So, what side?
Yeah.
Somebody smart.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. You got to work. No.
Oh, yeah. I was like,
Really? You didn't disclose this. Yeah. Record. She was a teaching panelist. And I a lot of things where it's like,
I told you.
Yes.
That's true. I don't think I'm very comfortable. Yeah. Well, so you just get put your email address in the bottom. Oh, well. Yeah. I said, hey, what's the website? Why are you? Tomorrow. Actually, no. I'll pay check. How many hours do you want? Yeah, I don't know. I signed up for one of this one's not really helpful. And one of them, like, Google Calendar, it was 4 a.m. I'm like, oh, hell no.